Welcome, and thank you for standing by. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode until the question and answer session of today's conference. At that time, you may press star 1, unmute your phone, and record your name to ask a question. I would like to inform all parties that today's conference is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. Thank you. You may begin.
Hi, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida. I'm Claire O'Shea from the agency's Office of Communications. Thank you for joining us for today's pre-launch media teleconference for NASA's Northrop Grumman 21st Commercial Resupply Services mission to the International Space Station. Liftoff of the company's Cygnus spacecraft on a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket is scheduled for no earlier than 11:29 a.m. Eastern Time, Saturday, August 3rd, from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. Teams from NASA, Northrop Grumman, and SpaceX just completed the launch readiness review, and senior representatives are here to speak on the milestone. Here with us today to discuss the mission are Bill Spetch, Operations Integration Manager with NASA's International Space Station Program, Meghan Everett, Deputy Chief Scientist with NASA's International Space Station Program, Ryan Tintner, Vice President of Civil Space Systems with Northrop Grumman, Jared Metter, Director of Flight Reliability with SpaceX, and Melody Lovin, Launch Weather Officer with Cape Canaveral Space Force Station's 45th Weather Squadron. Our speakers will provide remarks, and then we'll move to questions from the reporters on the phone. To enter the question queue, please press star 1. The operator will call on you and open your mic so you can ask your question. We ask that you please stick to one question at a time. To start, we'll hear from Bill.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us today. I'm looking forward to discussing our next cargo resupply mission to the ISS. As was stated, this will be the 21st Northrop Grumman commercial resupply mission, launching tomorrow, 11:29 Eastern Time. We look forward to Cygnus delivering nearly 8,200 pounds of supplies and experiments to the International Space Station. It'll arrive on Monday, August 5th, will be captured and berthed to the Nader Port of Unity around 3:55 a.m. Eastern Time. It's scheduled to remain on the space station until January, when it will depart, at which point it will burn up in the Earth's atmosphere. We have some great highlights coming up for this vehicle. We have some great space station research coming up. We have some test articles to evaluate liquid and gas flow through porous media found in space station life support systems, a balloon, penny, and a hex nut for a new demonstration on centripetal force. We have some microorganisms known as rotifers to examine the effects of spaceflight on DNA repair mechanisms, and a bioreactor to demonstrate the production of many high-quality blood and immune stem cells. Meg will be able to talk some more about this great science coming up when she talks to you. We have a number of critical spares and new hardware items flying on the mission as well, including a modification kit to support installation of the final rollout solar array, a vibration isolation system for a new exploration exercise system planned to fly next year, and a spare pump assembly for our urine processor on board. Additionally, we'll be sending up some fresh food to the crew. This includes squash, radishes, apples, carrots, blueberries, oranges, grapefruit, tomatoes, and coffee. Looking ahead in space station operations, we do have some other events coming up here in the near term. We have the undocking of Progress 87 from the aft port of Zvezda on August 12th. 2 days later, on August 14th, Progress 89 will launch from Baikonur in Kazakhstan to dock August 17th to the aft port of Zvezda. The International Space Station team is ready to support this upcoming cargo launch, and I want to thank the many team members who have helped get this launch ready to go. And with that, I'll turn it over to Meg to talk about the great science coming up.
All right. Thank you, Bill. So from the science research program, as with all of our cargo missions, the most exciting thing for us to talk about and fly is the science. So on this flight, we have over 800 kilograms of science flying up, and the science supports areas of human health, fundamental science, technology demonstrations, and developments in in-space manufacturing for benefits here on Earth. These investigations support efforts from our international partners, from NASA programs, and from ISS national labs. So as Bill said, some of the science that we are really excited about, I'm going to highlight as we go through this briefing. So the first thing is called a packed bed reactor experiment, and that's part of our water recovery series. This is the third flight for this experiment, and it looks at how gravity affects two-phase flow of liquids going through test articles that are part of the water and urine processors on the International Space Station today. So the combined results of this study will help inform future vehicle designs as well as the systems currently on the space station today. And from an Earth-based benefits perspective, all of this information helps inform heating and cooling systems and water purification systems here on Earth. The next study I'm going to talk about is Rotifer B2, and this is supported by our European Space Agency partners. And this looks at the effects of radiation on DNA repair in plankton-like organisms. So these organisms are exposed to radiation on Earth, and then they're flown to the space station and incubated in a facility called Cubic on ISS. And then they're returned to the Earth, and they're tested and looked at for various genetic differences from the ground samples as well as survivability. The next investigation we're going to highlight is the in-space expansion of hematopoietic stem cells for clinical applications. So stem cells are used very effectively to treat blood and immune diseases here on Earth. But one of the problems is it takes a lot of stem cells to treat these diseases. And this necessitates clinical-based ways and laboratory-based ways to expand or help these stem cells divide. And we do have ways to do that on Earth, but the problem is as the stem cells age and as they've gone through several rounds of division, they become less healthy and they lose their ability to multiply. So the hope and the goal is that we can use microgravity to allow for greater stem cell expansion and maintain the healthy stem cells longer. So the goal here is to develop this bioreactor where we will look at the effectiveness of the stem cell expansion technology with the vision of using space-based technology to develop clinical-grade stem cell expansion systems to treat patients here on Earth. All right, the last one I'm going to talk about, and this is a very fun one, and this is a demonstration. So for those of you that aren't familiar with a demonstration, this is science brought to us from students anywhere from kindergarten to 12th grade, and the astronauts do various scientific demonstrations and they take videos. So to date we have 36 videos performed by 26 different astronauts. And this one is called Screaming Balloon, and it's looking at centrifugal force developed by putting a penny or a hex nut in a balloon. And the astronaut will be asked to spin it around and they will record the noise that comes out of the balloon. And these videos will be sent down for educational purposes for students in the future. So we're looking forward to all of this science, and I am going to pass it off now to Ryan.
Thank you, Meg. Thank you all for joining us today, and I'm really happy to be here representing Northrop Grumman. You know, listening to all the science on here really is an honor for us to be able to support these missions. We've been supporting these commercial resupply missions for over a decade here, and as you all can tell, being able to support the science, the cargo, the fresh food, it is complicated here. And we've, over the years, increased from a smaller amount of cargo to now from 2,000, 3,000 pounds, all the way up now to 8,200 pounds. And so we're really proud of that. And in doing that, we also need to support late load, which you heard a little bit before and you'll hear more about in the last 24 hours to be able to get the science on right at the last minute. And so we are on track for all of that tomorrow when we launch. And then we will be prepared after we deliver the cargo to the station to be prepared for secondary missions such as reboost, which we've done a number of times here to keep the station on orbit. So we're prepared for NG-21 tomorrow. This is our second launch on Falcon 9. We successfully launched on NG-20, and it's been great working with SpaceX and the Falcon vehicle. And once we're berthed to the station there, then, of course, we will stay there for the time that was mentioned. We will reboost if asked to, and then we will haul away waste when we return from the station here. Another important point here for folks from the prior Cygnus missions, each Cygnus mission is dedicated to a pioneer and a hero in space. NG-21 is recognizing Dick Scobie, or Francis Dick Scobie, so that's the name of the vehicle, the SS Francis R. Dick Scobie. He was, many people know the name, but he was an astronaut, a pilot, an engineer. He flew in Vietnam and was a test pilot. He was actually the pilot of STS-41C, and most people know him, as he was the commander of Challenger for 51L. But I wanted everyone to know that this mission is in his name, is his honor and legacy going forward. As we look to the future, Cygnus is, prepared for multiple more missions here with NASA. We have a number left here. And we continue actually to increase the amount of cargo. So for every mission that NASA puts up, we can get more and more cargo so that we will continue and we will exceed 8,200 in upcoming missions here, and ultimately support NASA's vision for commercial LEO economy that we're closely partnered with. So I guess in conclusion here, I want to just thank NASA and SpaceX and everyone on here today for the partnership, and thank the media for dialing in. I look forward to the questions later. With that, I will pass it over to Jared at SpaceX.
Thank you for having me here today. SpaceX is honored to be here supporting Northrop Grumman's 21st cargo resupply mission to the ISS. We're incredibly proud as a company in all the work we do to support NASA and the work that enables for them to conduct aboard the ISS. Earlier this morning, we completed our launch readiness review. This was a thorough review, and I'm happy to announce that coming out of that review, we're tracking no technical blockers to tomorrow's launch. Weather will continue to be a watch item, and we're going to hear a bit more about that next. The hardware, the flight hardware, continues to make good progress readying for launch. Earlier this week, we encapsulated the Cygnus spacecraft inside of our fairing. We have now mated that fairing to the launch vehicle and rolled the entire assembly out to the pad. Currently, as we speak, we are doing the late load cargo operations. This is a complex integrated operation where we've rolled out a mobile clean room and attached it to the underside of the fairing, and allows access for cargo to be lifted up into the fairing and loaded directly into the Cygnus spacecraft. We're leveraging the same operations that we used on the Cygnus flight conducted by SpaceX earlier this year, so the team is highly confident in conducting these complex integrated operations. Moving forward, once that's complete, Falcon 9 will go vertical on the pad. We are lined up to do a launch tomorrow at 11:29 and 17 seconds Eastern Time, and we have a backup opportunity the next day, approximately 15 minutes earlier. We'll be flying on booster 1080. This is the 10th flight for this rocket. Interestingly, this will be the 4th time this rocket carries cargo up towards the space station. We previously flew Axiom 2 and Axiom 3 missions with this booster, as well as the CRS-30 flight. The Stage 2 will perform a single burn primary mission to insert Cygnus in the desired orbit, and we will be deploying Cygnus about 14 minutes into the flight. And then for those at the Cape, they'll be lucky enough to see a return to launch site with booster 1080 coming back and landing at LD1. I just want to say thank you to all of our partners that make this mission possible. Northrop Grumman for putting their trust in us. NASA for all the partnership we have in supporting these complex and capabilities that we bring to orbit, as well as the FAA and the 45th Space Wing for support of these launches. And with that, I will hand it over to Melody for more information about the weather.
All right. Thanks, Jared. Well, I don't think I'm going to surprise anyone when I say the weather may be tricky this weekend for a launch. Saturday does look better than Sunday. So Saturday morning, we are expecting some scattered showers to move in off the coastline. And unfortunately, it may be right around launch window. So we have a 50% probability of violation, which also, of course, translates to a 50% go for tomorrow's weather. The weather is going to deteriorate after that. maybe most people know already, but we have a potential tropical cyclone that is NHC has officially started advisories on earlier this morning. So we are expecting some kind of a tropical cyclone to form, most likely on Saturday, and then it's going to approach the western Florida Peninsula coastline sometime late Saturday to sometime Sunday morning or so. We are not within the cone of the center. However, tropical cyclone impacts do extend far and away from the center. So because of that, Sunday looks like incredibly tricky weather for us if we do need to utilize that backup launch window. Probability of violation for Sunday is 90%. That's 90. And that the main concerns, in addition to the cumulus cloud rule and the thick cloud layers rule, is surface winds, because we're expecting a steady 25 to 30 miles per hour out of the southeast on Sunday morning. So Sunday looks pretty tricky, so my team will do their best to find the hole in the clouds tomorrow and get that launch off on time. Otherwise, hopefully everyone be safe, because the weather could be very challenging on Sunday with potential flooding concerns and maybe an isolated tornado or two somewhere across the Florida Peninsula. So with that, I'll go ahead and pass it back to Claire.
Thank you. We'll now take questions for any of our speakers. Reminder, if reporters would like to ask a question, please press *1 on your phone to be entered into the queue. The operator will open and close your mic for you to ask your question. Please stick to one question at a time and identify to whom it is directed. Our first question will go to Gina from ABC News.
On the weather past Sunday, what are your launch windows after this annoying system goes through?
Gina, could you please
Sure.
repeat your question?
Yes, I'm checking on the launch windows after the weather possibly clears up after this tropical system goes through.
Jared Metter from SpaceX here. We have an opportunity tomorrow and then a backup on Sunday. On Monday, we have a stand down for cargo refresh, and then we would have opportunities on both the 6th and the 7th. So we'll continue to monitor the weather and find our hole in the clouds to launch.
Thank you, Jared. We'll now move on to Micah from Wall Street Journal.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you. Bill and Jared, if I may, NASA recently awarded SpaceX a deal to carry out some emergency response studies. Is this study at all tied to the current CFT Starliner mission and potential contingencies that could be needed there? Could you comment on that and elaborate on the goals of the study? Thanks a lot.
Sure, I can take that one. This is Bill Spetch. So the agency implemented the recent task order to develop a potential return scenario for NASA astronaut Tracy Dyson aboard Dragon while Roscosmos continues its ongoing Zvezda Leak location work. So that was really the purpose of that.
Okay. Did CFD play in at all there, Bill? Or
no, that task order was not related.
Thank you. Next question will go Bill from CBS News.
Yes, hi. I think this is a question for Bill Spetch as well. Is there anything aboard the Cygnus, either late load or otherwise, that's specifically related to the Starliner crew? I mean, you did mention food going up. I assume everybody shares that, but clothing, anything at all that would support Starliner for any amount of time? Thanks.
Yeah, we do have a few items that are going up because we do like to keep our options open. So we do have some items such as clothes. You'll remember we kicked off their suitcases when we were flying up that spare pump that we had. So we have some clothes. We have some personal food items for them, things like that.
Thank you, Bill. We'll now move on to Joey from Reuters.
Thanks. Bill just asked my previous question, but a different one for Jared and also for Bill. How many more Cygnus cargo missions are you guys expecting to fly on Falcon 9? Thanks.
Actually, why don't we let...
Yeah, this is Ryan. I can jump in on that one.
There you go.
So as of right now, we do plan on the next mission, NG-22, flying on Falcon. And then as everyone has seen here, I mean, the Cygnus itself is launch vehicle agnostic, and so we will continue to work with NASA and determine the right launch vehicle after that.
Thank you. We'll now move to Jeff from Space News.
Well, it looks like we lost Jeff on the line here, so we'll go ahead and go to Eric Berger with Ars Technica.
Thanks very much. This question for Jared.
We might have lost another one. We'll continue on and go with Will from Space Flight Now until we get the others back.
Sure you can hear me before I ask my question?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Question for Bill Spetch. You mentioned the upcoming Progress launch as far as the station timeline, but correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe I heard you mention Crew 9. Is that still 18th, or is there a new target launch date for that mission and that crew? Thanks.
No, we're still targeting the 18th as the earliest on that one. We have a window for that that's about 16 days long before we turn Pad 39A over to SpaceX for the Europa Clipper mission.
Thank you, Bill. We'll move on to Jim from Florida Media Now.
Hi, everybody. Jim Siegel from Florida Media Now here. I have a question about the cargo that's inserted at the last minute, so to speak, before launch, and wondering if there is delays beyond Sunday, let's say, does any of the cargo that had been put on Cygnus, does it get removed and replaced by other kinds of cargo, other more later versions of that cargo? Thank you.
Let's see, I can take a cut at that one, and then Meg can follow up if needed from the science side. So we do have items that are that have limited life on them that we load late in the vehicle. What you've heard is, Jared talked about the stand down that we'll do after 2 launch attempts, and that is to refresh cargo items that need it. We'll have some items that will get pulled out and have fresh stuff put in if we get into that scenario. So that'll be the time-critical real items that go in there. We have science mainly is what drives that time-critical load.
Thank you. We'll now move to Mark from Aviation Week in Space Technology.
Yes, thank you. Just Mark Carreau from Aviation Week in Space Technology. And my question is for Bill Spetch. I just want to be sure to ask if there's some contingency supplies that you might be sending to Butch and Sonny other than what you mentioned. And I think specifically I'm interested in knowing whether you might be sending spacesuits that they could wear on a Falcon, on a Crew Dragon, if that were to be how they are to return in the future. Thank you.
No, we don't have any suits on NG-21 for them to return. We would have to deal with that later.
We'll now go to Marcia Smith from SpacePolicyOnline.com.
Thanks so much. My question is for Ryan. Following up on what Joey asked earlier, could you give us an update on the development of the new version of Antares, and when do you expect to return flights to Wallops?
Yeah, I don't think I can give specific timelines on here today, but I can say that that is progressing as planned here, and we're on track. As far as the specific mission and the specific timeline, again, anything after NG-22, we're looking closely at those timelines. So really, nothing else I can probably update on today.
Thank you. We'll now go to Bill Harwood from CBS News.
This question is for Jared. And Jared, I'm not asking you to, make any, decisional things or were predictions. It's a technical question about the Crew Dragon. And I'm just wondering, if you had to put 6 people on a Crew Dragon, what has to be done besides spacesuits, umbilicals, and seats? Is there anything with your spacecraft that engineering would have to go in and modify, or software or whatever, just to make that possible? Or is that a fairly simple thing to do if, and I'm not asking you to say if it is, but if, it came down to that something like that happened, either with Starliner's crew or a future crew?
Sure. The Crew Dragon has always actually been designed to carry up to 7 people to low Earth orbit and back. So we retain all those same capabilities today that were initially designed in.
Thank you. And folks, we just had a technical issue on our side with some of the queue questions. So if any reporters would like to come back on and enter the queue, this is the moment to do so before we end the teleconference. All right, we'll wrap it up. That concludes our teleconference for today. Again, NASA, Northrop Grumman, and SpaceX are currently targeting 11:29 a.m. Eastern Time, Saturday, August 3rd, for the launch of the Cygnus spacecraft on a Falcon 9 rocket from the Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida. You can follow along with our researchers in these studies in orbit online at nasa.gov/station. Thank you all for joining us today, and stay tuned to nasa.gov for launch updates and NASA's mission coverage.